welcome back to the NBA Draft Special of the Pagnotta Take on Sports. Guys, we continue. We went through the first 15 picks of the NBA Draft, and now we'll move on. We go to 16 right here in Boston. The Boston Celtics, they made the playoffs this year as a 7 seed in the Eastern Conference. So they played pretty well this year, and they're moving in the right direction. They've got some good pieces with Isaiah Thomas and Jared Sullinger, but there are reports that if Okafor is not taken within the first 2 picks of the NBA draft, at number 3 they would try to trade up. So those guys could be in the trade mix. I would hope not. They have other pieces with Avery Bradley still being there, but those guys are not the type that can lead them anywhere. So hopefully they don't trade Isaiah Thomas. Even being a Knicks fan, it's always nice to see the Celtics be good as being one of the NBA's better franchises. But here at 16, I have them taking probably one of the best players in my mind in the entire draft, and Sam Dekker. We saw what this guy could do in the NCAA tournament. I witnessed it watching as a Tar Heel fan. He really just took us to task in that game. And it was awful watching that, of course, as a Tar Heel fan. But he's a great player, and I think he showed his upside in the draft. I think a lot of the focus was, or in the tournament draft, a lot of the focus for Wisconsin was on the center position with Kaminsky, but I think Dekker really is a great player. So you got to watch him. He's definitely got the offensive skill set that he can show. Now, he didn't show it a whole lot in the national championship game, but I think the pressure got to him just a little bit. But he is a great shooter. He can shoot from the outside. He can drive you inside. That's all he did against us. Drove right to the post and just laid it in. He's a great small forward, and I think he really fits out there with the pieces that they already have in Boston. He would be a great person to plug into that team, and they need someone like that right now. And if he goes out there to Boston, they could be that team that could sneak up there to maybe a 3 or a 4 seed if he lives up to the potential that he has come next year, because he is a good defender as well. Watching him play against us, watching him play in the national championship game, he's good. He's a good reactor, and he fits the style. He's a tall, small forward. So if he could really develop, he could really lock down guys, especially with that height. Definitely would like that pick there. Then we move on to number 17 on the Milwaukee Bucks. They made the playoffs this year, and I think they definitely have the potential to be a long-term good team. But here, they have the talent, I think, on the outside. They need to go power forward here, and I have them taking Bobby Portis, the power forward out of Arkansas, and yet another guy that, as a North Carolina fan, I witnessed play. Now, he did not play that great against us, especially with a team that ran when we were up-tempo against them, and they were up-tempo, but he fits in that style of offense, which they were used to out in Arkansas. So that's a good thing to realize, to have on your team, a guy that can run down the court with some speed. Portis plays well at the power forward position. He is that inside guy. He's a great defender on the inside. He's got the length on him, definitely, to get to lock you down on the inside. He's got the ability to block the ball very well. Offensively, there are questions for him offensively, especially, from watching the game that he played against us. He doesn't have a whole lot of range. There is some there. There is potential for range there. He knocked down a couple of shots that I was like, wow, that is pretty impressive. But at other times, shots that he should have been knocking down, he couldn't knock down. So I don't know if maybe that was just that game, a consistency issue. Didn't really watch a whole lot of his game, so not an expert on him. But there is potential there. Inside, I think he's got a good enough offensive game. And to me, watching him, he just looks like a Milwaukee Bucks style player. He looks like that Dwight Gooden type, that aggressive inside player. And they want guys, a guy like, to go inside with like John Henson, who can block the ball as well. So I think that would be a great fit out there in Milwaukee. As I said, on the back end, they have good potential. If they can get a guy on the inside that can play some defense, again, in the Eastern Conference, you never really know what could happen. They could end up finding themselves up in the top 4, maybe even the top 3 come next year. So we move on. Number 18 is Houston. Now, the Rockets, it's pretty obvious what they need just from watching them play. Patrick Beverley got injured right before the playoffs, but Patrick Beverley is not a long-term solution. They need a point guard, and there is a superstar point guard on the board here at 18. I am shocked that he's down this low. in many drafts, but I don't really see him fitting in anywhere. He's not really a great defender, but the guy can score the basketball, which is pretty much what Houston wants. They don't care if he can play defense. They want you to be in there and help them score 140 a game. That's why I think they go and take Jerian Grant, the point guard from Notre Dame. This guy is a genuine superstar. This guy can score the basketball. He's got some of the better handles that I've seen in college basketball. Of course, he had the highlight reel dunk this past season when he jumped over one of the defenders to throw it down. So the dude shows commitment. He's out there on the court. He is a leader that shows it when he's out on the court, which is another thing that I like about him. He plays aggressive. Defensively, he's not the greatest. I think he's kind of that type. He's that type that saves it for offense. But, you don't really have to be a great defender to win in the NBA today, as we mentioned in my last episode, Steph Curry. Now, he is not Steph Curry. I got to reiterate this. No one right now is Steph Curry. No one in this draft for sure. But he is a good player. I think he has the potential to be the best point guard in this draft. He's got the offensive mindset. He's just got to develop the defensive mindset. He can't take plays off on the defensive end. And he's got to, if he's out there, you got to watch out because he can score the rock. He can move the ball very well. He was able to do that last year. I know watching him play against us in the ACC championship game, he played very well. So he's definitely a guy to keep an eye on as maybe an under the radar best player in this draft here, down the line. But I think he goes 18 to Houston. It's a perfect fit for them. From there, we move on to number 19, Washington. Now, this is an interesting pick. There are a lot of people that think this will be a power forward pick here or maybe a guard. I don't have either one of those. I think they have to address that Paul Pierce is leaving. They believe, I believe in their mind, they think they can get someone back. They can get Paul Pierce back. And I also believe that they think even if they don't get Paul Pierce back, they will get Kevin Durant, so they would rather leave that spot open for Durant. But I don't think either one of those situations actually happens. I think Durant will ultimately stay in Oklahoma City, but that's still that's still a year off. That's still a whole summer off. But they're going to lose for sure, I think, Paul Pierce. I don't think Paul Pierce is coming back. I really think Paul Pierce is going to L.A. He said he wants to play back under Doc Rivers. He loved playing out there in Boston under Doc Rivers. So I think they have to take a small forward. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson is on the board here from Arizona. He's a great player. He fit in well out there last year in Arizona. He was able to score even with Stanley Johnson there. I thought 2 years ago he was the best player on Arizona's roster. I think he has a great talent. He's a big guy on the inside. He played power forward last year there, so moving him to small forward is just a huge advantage with the size. He's got a great shot, of course, great range, just like anyone else on that Arizona team. And he can really, like I said, he can shoot the ball. Pretty good defender, and again, not really as much upside with him. This is a guy that's we've seen. We've seen, I think, what he can do. We know his skill set, but Washington needs to address the fact that Paul Pierce will not be back. And Hollis-Jefferson is a perfect fit. He's still on the board. He's the best guy that they can take there for that position. And I think he has the talent to be a really good player. And I also think he could be that type of guy that could come off the bench if you needed him. You can always move him to power forward if you're really dying right there. So he has that ability to be versatile. And he could sit behind Kevin Durant if he really needed to, and he could be a good piece out there. But I think he has the potential maybe to become a starter that's good enough to help Washington move forward. From there, it's on to number 20, to Toronto. And they have needs really around the ball around the court, around the ball in a lot of areas. I think definitely inside is an area they have to address. I know they don't really have a great power forward. I know Tyler Hansbrough, one of the players for North Carolina, he plays. I don't believe he's their starter on the inside there, but he comes off the bench. Never really worked out in the NBA as well as he did in college, but still, of course, loved Psycho T. But, they do have Valanciunas or Valanciunas, however you pronounce it. Either way, I pronounce it Valanciunas, on the inside. I think he is one of the best centers in the NBA. Small forward is an area I think they do need to address someone, and I do think they need a backup point guard because Kyle Lowry, while he is a great player, he just can't seem to stay on the court. But I think here they go power forward for one reason. Montrezl Harrell is still on the board here, and Montrezl Harrell really is a sensational player. He's a great defender, one of the best in this draft, no doubt. I think he might be the second or third best defender in this draft. He has offensive ability inside. He is an absolute monster on the inside. You give him any glimpse of light, he's going to throw a dunk down on you. I think he set the record at Louisville for dunks easily, and I think he was somewhere up there in ACC numbers career-wise. So that's pretty nuts. That he was up there. He's a guy, again, that shows a lot of emotion on the court, which can be good, but at times can be bad. He does have a tendency to get into some foul trouble, so that's one thing to keep an eye on. That's one knock on him. But I really do think Montrezl Harrell is a good player in this draft, but similar to a lot of the other inside Louisville players, he's not that guy that's going to go really high in the draft. They have a lot of these guys that are talented, but just don't end up making it in the NBA, but I think he's got the potential to make it due to that defensive ability. He's got some offensive ability. He doesn't really have a whole lot of shooting range, but you don't need it with the way he plays because he's more of an inside power forward, maybe a center fit if they need it. And having him and Valanciunas on the inside would really solidify that Toronto inside and make them really tough to play against on the inside. And in the Eastern Conference, there's not a lot of teams that can match up with that on the inside. From there, we move on to number 21 to Dallas, a team that is getting older as we speak. They seem to be just withering away, similar to San Antonio, but San Antonio is still finding ways to win basketball games. Dallas has a lot of course, storylines this past year. Of course, they acquired Rajon Rondo in a trade. Didn't work out. Rondo will be gone in free agency. Don't see them bringing him back. He clashed heads with Rick Carlisle, who is a great coach. So if you clash heads with Rick Carlisle, you've really got issues. Carlisle is one of the quieter coaches in the league, and Rondo's ego is just way too big. But I think Dirk is still going to be there. He's still going to be playing at a high level. He still played at a high level this last year. I don't know how he's still doing it, but he still is. They got Chandler Parsons. They may be looking in free agent to pick up a guy like Danny Green, who's a great player, great defender. He can shoot the ball well enough. So if they can get some pieces out there, there is one need that they need to address in this draft. And there's a good player on the board at 21. They need a point guard. Tyus Jones is still there, and Tyus Jones is a great player. Earlier this year, I called into the show Harrell on the Bench on CBS Sports Radio, and I was talking on the air to Scott Harrell, one of my idols. As I said that in the first episode. Love Scott Harrell. I would love if he could see this, but I haven't been able to get him to watch it yet. I really hope he will. But I was talking to him about it was right after the Derrick Rose injury, and I was talking to him about the potential of them maybe drafting Tyus Jones in the upcoming draft. I didn't think they would end up making it, as far as they did, or having a good enough season, because I didn't think D Rose was coming back. But I said that they needed to take Tyus Jones because Tyus Jones had a good enough skill set. At the time, the only game that I really had to go off of at the time for Tyus Jones was his first game against Carolina, where he played very well. I had watched some of his other games, but wasn't really following him as much. It was more for Okafor and Winslow, who we knew were going to be great players. But he jumped off the page, especially during the tournament. Tyus Jones showed he could score the championship game. I think he was their best player on the court. He was their most consistent player and came up in clutch moments. Tyus Jones is a great player, and I said on the air that I thought Tyus Jones could be the guy that could potentially replace Derrick Rose. Now, I'm not saying completely replace, and I'm not saying he's anywhere close to what Derrick Rose is. No one is anywhere close to what Derrick Rose is, or was, at least during his prime time. No one's close to that at all in this draft. But Tyus Jones, I think, has shown he can be that great of a player. And I was laughed at on the air by one of his assistants, and I respect his opinion, and he said that he just didn't think that Tyus Jones was that great. But Tyus Jones is a good player. From watching the games played against North Carolina, I know Marcus Page is not a great defender, but he's good enough to where Tyus Jones should not have been able to play as well as he did against him. And Jones can hit these shots that are nuts. He's got range on him. He can be he's a good enough defender to make it in the league. But Dallas really needs a guy that can facilitate the ball. And, of course, he had plenty of practice with the talent that they had out there in Duke. He had to get the ball in the hands of Okafor. He had to get the ball in the hands of Winslow. You have to get the ball in the hands of those guys, and he found a way to do that while still lighting up the scoreboards in the tournament. He's a great player. He's got a whole lot of upside. I think he may have the most upside in this entire draft. Showing it at the end of the year, of course, in that championship game. So he's going to be a great player. He's a good fit out there in Dallas. And the best thing about him, the best thing Rick Carlisle will love about him, he does not have an ego. He doesn't think he's the greatest player in the world. So I think it works out, and they need a point guard bad, and I think Jones is a great fit there. Now Chicago is on the board at 22. Jones is just off the board right before there, but I don't think Dallas could pass up on him. But I do think the biggest need for Chicago is a point guard. They have to have a backup for Derrick Rose. They've tried this before. It hasn't really worked out. Marcus Teague never really worked out like they wanted him to. So now they need a point guard. Aaron Brooks can't be relied on as his backup. So I think they have to go point guard. They go Delon Wright, a point guard out of Utah. He's a good player. I watched him play. Another offensive-type player out there from Utah. Again, the main game that I watched and that I go back to for him was the game against Arizona. He played very well in that game. He's definitely got the offensive skill set, as I said. Defensively, I thought he played pretty well in the game that I watched, shutting down their point guard, who's not coming to mind right now. I know his first name's TJ, but I can't remember his last name. And a great player at that. And Delon Wright showed he can play with some of the best in college basketball. I think this guy's a great player. Now, he's not better than these point guards that have been taken ahead of him. And I think it's a slight reach at 22. I could see him going later in the first round, but he fits what they need. They need a backup point guard. This is a guy that they can take a risk on. He can score the ball offensively. He's got a great shot. He can shoot the three very well. And they really do need a backup point guard. They can't take the risk and say, well, we trust that Derrick Rose is going to stay healthy. I understand you gotta believe that he can, especially if you're the Bulls coaches, the Bulls front office. You got to think this guy will find a way to stay healthy, but he just has not been able to find a way to stay healthy. Hoiberg's a college coach too, so he's going to know how to deal with a guy like this. He can bring him in there, and he can make them better because he made that Iowa State team great. From a team that was average to a team that was great in the mindset of Iowa State. I know they lost in the first round to UAB, so that's not they didn't show that they were a great team. But he made them into a team that was respectable in college basketball and had them consistently ranked in the top 20 the entire time he was there. I think he will know how to deal with that, and they need that point guard presence behind Derrick Rose, someone that they can trust. Wright fits that bill. So from there we go to Portland. Now this is an interesting pick because there is a lot going on out in Portland. They were involved in a trade last night. They traded away Nicholas Batum, which was an interesting trade away. I thought Batum was a great player out there in Portland. Don't really know why they wanted to get rid of him. Then this morning, there are reports saying that DeMarcus Aldridge was the reason that they were trying to clear cap space, but Aldridge has said he is 99.9% sure that he is not returning to Portland. Chris Broussard reported this from ESPN, and Broussard knows his stuff. So there is that 0.1% chance, apparently, that he could go back to Portland, but I think he's sold that he is leaving. I think he's going to San Antonio, but he is sold on the fact that he is moving on somewhere, I would say in the state of Texas. So they need to find someone at that position. We know now they're preparing to offer the max contract to Damian Lillard, so that's not a worry right there. They're going to have a superstar there. And I think they go Kevon Looney, I think is how you pronounce his name, from UCLA. Another guy at power forward. He's not really a flashy player, wasn't even the best player at UCLA this past year. But, they need a power forward. Looney's got a lot of upside. Good offensive player. Defensively, he's got a good skill set there as well. But again, not really a great player. Wasn't a guy that was really talked about a whole lot last year. Underperformed a little bit out there at UCLA, which once again underperformed from what we're used to seeing UCLA at. So I think he's got a lot of potential. Another potential pick. But Portland, I think it's something they need to do. They definitely need a power forward somewhere in this draft. I don't know who they go out there and get if they don't get Looney, but they definitely need someone at power forward. And now they need someone at small forward with Batum moving on. So they've got some issues they got to address. I think they're regressing, it looks like, at this point. But if they can bring in Looney, he can live up to the potential and build on what he's already got as a skill set and become a good player. I think he could fit out there well in Portland and try to at least give some help to Damian Lillard, who's losing his three best helpers in Aldridge, Batum, and Wesley Matthews in this offseason. From there, we move on 24 in a year, and it is the team that everyone thought would be the champs, and I'm pretty sure people in Cleveland still believe are the champs just for making it to the NBA Finals. There are some positions they have to address here. I think the quote-unquote trash brothers, neither one of them should be back. JR opted out of his contract. I think Shumpert's still going to be there, but JR did opt out of his contract, and they do not need to pursue him and re-sign him. He wasn't a good fit out there. I don't think he's a good fit anywhere. He has a huge ego, so, the only fit that would probably seem right would be L.A., the Lakers, of course. But I think they have to get a shooting guard, and I think they go with R.J. Hunter, an extremely talented player out of Georgia State. This guy can light it up. He's got great shooting ability. His three-point shooting is off the charts. He hit that unbelievable three-point shot in the tournament against Baylor. But really, I went back after that game. They had said that he was a potential high draft pick, a first-round draft pick, and I went back and watched some of his tape. He is a really good player. This guy can be a dominant player. I don't know if it transitions as well into the NBA, but he's going to have some scoring ability. Cleveland needs a shooting guard, someone else besides LeBron James that can shoot the ball. I know Irving's still going to be there, but he just can't seem to stay healthy. Love may still be there. He said that he wants to re-sign with Cleveland, but he never really played that well. They need another guy that they can trust out there. So I think that this is a good pick. Hunter, I don't know if you can trust him to automatically go in there and start, but even coming off the bench, he provides something, a skill set. He's got that three-point shooting, as I said. I think he would love playing out there with LeBron James because he loves the spotlight, and he's learned a lot. He was coached by his dad in college, which I think definitely helps. Those guys that are coached by their fathers are definitely able to learn a lot more because they're always around their dads, always learning something different. If he could go out there and learn with LeBron James, I think it would work. I could see him really working well with LeBron James, and that would be a great fit out there, and he would definitely bring them something that they need, and I think that could put them over the top to winning a title for sure if they can get a good shooter like him out there. From there, we move on to number 25, and it's the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, this spot, I think there's only one direction you can go with. Marc Gasol I don't think he's going to be there. I don't think he's going to New York. I think he's going to Chicago. I think he's going to go out there and play with his brother. They got Joakim Noah, who's had trouble staying healthy out there too. And if you put all three of them inside, that's just an absolute mess. The only thing would be cap room out there. But if he doesn't go there, I could also see him going to maybe L.A., playing out there with Kobe. And if they can get a good draft pick like I have earlier in the draft, them going with Okafor, you can maybe see him going out there with Okafor. They trade Randall, and they would have a great group on the inside there. But I think they can't bank on him being there. And even if he is there, you would like to get a backup for him. So I have them taking, excuse me for this, Arturas Gudaitis, center from Lithuania. The most notable center ever to come from Lithuania is Gudaitis Ilgauskas. Now, from what I've read on this guy that I have getting drafted here, he is Similar skill set to him, not quite the same skill set as him. It's definitely evolved, of course, the NBA of what a center is. Now, I don't know a whole lot about him, so I'm not really going to break this down. Center-wise, really at this point in the draft, it drops off pretty substantially. There are power forwards for days here, but they need a center on the inside, a true center to take over for Gasol. I'm not going to say a whole lot about this guy. I don't really know a whole lot about him, but if he's anywhere similar to what Zydrunas Ilgauskas is, he's going to fit the skill set that they look. Really what they want from a guy at center is a defensive presence. That is really what Gasol is. Gasol can score, but they can make do without him there. Conley can score the ball. You have Zach Randolph that can score the ball, but they want defenders in there that can play well, like Gasol did, like Tony Allen did. So they need guys like that there, and this guy may fit the billing, he may not. This is the guy that was available on the board at center. That's the best player left. From there we move on to San Antonio. The Spurs, there are a lot of areas that they need here. They are going to apparently let go of Danny Green. That's what I am hearing. They may try to sign another shooting guard. I think that's where they're trying to go with this. Maybe try to pick up another shooting guard somewhere in free agency. But right now, I'd say they probably go with the best player on the board at this draft pick. I think, and they could use a backup small forward to Kawhi Leonard. And I think this guy could actually fit at shooting guard as well. Justin Anderson from Virginia. And Justin Anderson, he is that good of a player. He really is. I watched him play in the ACC. He was the reason, really, that Virginia was as good as they were. They had some other players that stepped up, but he was the best player on that team. He's a left-handed shot, which is a little bit different. He can shoot lights out. Now, late in the year, people said, well, he didn't shoot that well. Well, he had the hand injury, and you could tell it was on his shooting hand. It really affected his shot. He could not knock down shots at the end with that hand injury. I think it's going to be interesting to see how healthy he is, and he's a good fit out in San Antonio. If they needed to, he could always come off the bench if they wanted. As they said, they may go out and sign a shooting guard, so he could come off the bench for Kawhi Leonard or for that shooting guard, depending on if Manu Ginobili ends up returning. But this pick could be interesting here. Anderson, of course, is the guy that I have. Great upside. Love the guy. Good shooter. Really the best player on the board at this point. But they may end up going power forward here as well, with the possibility that Tim Duncan may not be back. Now, I think Tim Duncan's going to give it another try because he still looks like he can still play. He still's out there playing. I think he's one of the best players to ever play the game of basketball, and he's still out there playing well. So, he's got 5 championships. I think he wants 6. He wants to even Michael Jordan. No one talks about him as one of the greatest players of all time. He's got to be up there. And if he stays and they could bring in Justin Anderson to come off the bench, or even if they need him to be a starter, they could be a team that could get right back up near the top, easily win 50 games, and maybe find themselves back in the finals yet again. And from there, we move on to the second pick of the first round for the Los Angeles Lakers. Here, there is a lot of talent on the board, but there's a true freshman from UNLV that I really like going here. It's Rashad Vaughan, a shooting guard, and we all know they need a shooting guard. Kobe Bryant can't stay healthy. He just can't. His knees aren't holding up anymore. Love Kobe. He's one of my favorite players of all time. I have him as my second best player of all time, but he's getting to that ripe age where they need to start looking elsewhere to get a shooting guard. And a guy like Vaughan, if they don't want to move on right away, could be a fit. He could sit behind Kobe, learn how Kobe plays the game. Just hope he doesn't learn the sense of ego that Kobe has. That's the only thing I don't like a whole lot about Kobe to an extent, but it is fun to watch it. But he can learn from Kobe, there's almost none better at the shooting guard position to learn from in today's NBA than Kobe Bryant. He sits behind him and learns. This guy was a true freshman, got a lot of upside coming out of UNLV. So he is a guy that can light up the scoreboards. He did last year at UNLV. So definitely a guy to keep an eye on. I think it would be a great fit in LA. They need a shooting guard, and if they can get him in there with Okafor or him in there with Russell, they could really have a solid core going forward. With Randall also, if they end up keeping him, they could really turn into that team that could end up ultimately, maybe, if anything, opening up, for free agency down the line with Durant, with Westbrook, who that will be considered highly there. Maybe if they can even find a way to bring in Kevin Love this offseason by making this draft worthwhile, they could find a way to get themselves back up there through this draft. And I think they've got the potential to, and Vaughan will be a perfect pick there at 27. Getting ready to close it out here. 28, Boston is on the clock. And inside, they definitely need some help on the inside. Earlier in the draft, I had them going with Sam Dekker, perfect fit there. Here, I have them going with Rakeem Christmas, a power forward from Syracuse. This is a really, really good player here. I think he's the only reason Syracuse was any good last year. The rest of their team was pretty awful, actually, last year. And they got the postseason ban, but I think they may have made the tournament solely on the play of Rakeem Christmas. He was that good last year. He finally showed that star power that they thought when they brought him in there. He was one of the higher recruits in his recruiting class, and one of the better ones that Syracuse has gotten in a while. Never really worked out, but now he's starting to show that potential. He did at the end of last year, and I think he sneaks into the end of the first round. He would be a good fit out there in Boston. Doesn't have to leave far from where he played college basketball, and he would be under another former college head coach in Brad Stevens. And I think he really is a great player. I really do think he has the potential to be one of the better players selected at the end of the first round here. I like him from watching him on tape. He fits kind of the Boston style. He's a physical inside player. He can get to the free throw line. He's pretty good from the free throw line as well. And if they are planning on trading Sullinger, this could be the guy that they keep. I don't know which one of their picks they're going to trade. Most likely, if they're trading up, they might trade both picks, but if they end up keeping it, they still need someone inside, and Christmas fits that inside need for them. From there, we move on. Number 29 is Brooklyn. This pick is interesting. This was hard. There are a lot of power forwards left on the board here, but I have them taking Cliff Alexander from Kansas. Technically, he's from high school. The kid never played last year. He had all sorts of issues for eligibility, so he never played a game at Kansas. Never stepped on the court for the Kansas Jayhawks. So, this is a pick solely based on potential. There is nothing to go off of with this guy. It's even worse than Kyrie Irving. I know Irving was that talented coming out of high school, so it didn't really matter. But Kyrie Irving at least played in games before he was drafted. Cliff Alexander never played in a college basketball game. So that means they're going off of pretty much nothing. And I think, he's got potential from what he was extremely highly rated recruit. Kansas thought he was going to be their next star, and I was shocked when he actually declared for the draft. I thought it was the wrong move, but I think they take the risk here. Brooklyn, they did make the playoffs, but from watching them, there are a lot of needs for the Brooklyn Nets. They don't have a whole lot there to begin with. I know Darren Williams is there, getting older. Same thing with Joe Johnson. That's right, Joe Johnson. My goodness, Joe Johnson. He's getting older as well. Inside, they do have Brook Lopez, but they've been trying to trade him apparently for years. We've seen those rumors coming out there. So Alexander's an upside guy, a guy I think you got to take a risk on. And if he works out, he could end up being he could end up being a really great find. But he could also end up being a bust from not playing college basketball, taking a year off. You just wonder about guys like that. But ultimately, I think this would be a solid pick at 29. And they're, again, solely on upside, and it's something that Brooklyn really needs. They need to hit on this draft pick if they want to go in the right direction, because they're getting older and they need better young players to come in there and make that team better. And the final pick of the draft goes to the 2015 NBA champions, the Golden State Warriors, of course. As I said earlier, I was joking around. They could put all guards out there and win. Not possible, of course. They need players in there. There, of course, are guys that could leave in the offseason. This is something that, you get in the mindset of, well, they're NBA champions, but you got to remember it's never going to be the same team as the year before. There's always going to be changes that are going to happen. So, you know, they could lose guys like Bogut, who they need to end up losing, because I don't think Bogut's the right fit out there. He doesn't fit what they want to do, and he's really becoming a liability at this point. There's also a chance they could lose Uzeli on the inside, so they need to go with someone on the inside. I have them taking yet another power forward in this draft, in Jordan Mickey, a player from LSU. He was a great performer at the Combine. He's a great scorer on the inside, both him and Jarrell Martin, who will be drafted later in the draft. For sure. These guys made LSU respectable. The inside, their scoring on the inside was just nuts. Their defending on the inside is crazy as well. They were a great team last year. LSU found a way to win games, not scoring the ball a whole lot. Mickey I think was their best player on the inside. He plays power forward. He can score the ball, as I said. Good defense. And, again, another upside pick here. This is a guy that has potential to be really good. And Golden State can use a guy on the inside that can play defense and score enough. They don't need a whole lot of scoring, as you can see, with Curry, with Thompson, with Green on the outside. You know, they've got what they want scoring-wise. They want some defense on the inside, guys that can defend. They need someone also on the outside because chances are they could end up meeting LeBron James in the finals as well. So they may want to find maybe a defender at the small forward position. But right now, I think the best player they could go with is Jordan Mickey. That'd be a great pick. So that is all for the mock draft here on the Pagnotta Take on Sports. I'll give you a couple other guys to watch down the line. Christian Wood, a player from UNLV, power forward, a sophomore. He would still be on the board. Definitely a guy I think that will go high. Good skill set. Again, he played out there with Vaughan, who just got drafted at 27. So I think he definitely, he's a good player as well. Scoring ability is there, so he's a guy to take a look at. Jarrell Martin, the teammate, as I mentioned, for Jordan Mickey just a few seconds ago. Similar type mindset. I think he's a little bit more of a defender than he is a scorer. So a team that really needs a defender, maybe like the New York Knicks, if he falls there, maybe could go after a guy like him. Another defender and a Carolina player who I hope has success. Definitely thought he made the wrong move, but not too heartbroken that he actually left. Wasn't, he was a good player, but wasn't very high on him, is J.P. Tokido. I wish you the greatest luck in the NBA. Of course, he's got a great defender's skill set, which is something I would love the Knicks to get if he's still there. They need a defender. Plenty of teams that need a great defender, so he could fit there. That would be a great fit if Golden State could find a way to pick him, maybe pick him late in the first round to try to bring him in there and get some defense on the outside, maybe to defend against guys like maybe James Harden, because he can play the shooting guard position as well. And then when you play LeBron James, you can move him to small forward. That's the thing that's so great about J.P. Tokido, and he's an athlete as well. We heard that all last year. If anyone's a North Carolina fan, we heard that over and over again. That's all we heard all year. Him and Meeks losing weight, Britt with the different shooting styles. So definitely some potential there with J.P. Tokido. And then of course, always, there are these great international players that you can find down here. The ones that people always go back to, of course, are Manu Ginobili, the late pick in the draft, similar to kind of like Tom Brady. We hear it every year whenever we get to the 6th round of the NFL draft. Well, who's going to find the Tom Brady prospect? It's the same thing in the NBA draft. Once we get into the 50s, who's going to find the Manu Ginobili prospect? Don't know if there's anyone like that in this draft, but there are good players here. I got guys like Pat Connaughton who are at the bottom who I think are going to be pretty good. As well. So definitely a lot of potential, and hopefully it's going to be a good night. Hoping for a good night for the New York Knicks, hoping for a good night for everyone in the NBA. And it starts at 7 o'clock on ESPN if anybody's wanting to watch that one. So we're about 5 hours away from that, and I'm ready to go, and I'm hoping everyone else is. But aside from the draft itself, there are a lot of trade talks going on. As I mentioned, Charlotte's been extremely, extremely active. They've already shopped guys like Gerald Henderson, and they shopped, I forget who they got rid of in the Matt Barnes trade, but it was someone of a little bit of significance. So they are definitely looking to move players. Charlotte's trying to get something going. I know there is also rumors they're fielding offers for the 9th pick in the draft, so they could even be looking to trade out of there, which if they are, tells me that they believe that they are going to get Al Jefferson back, which, you know, I think, again, is up in the air, as I said earlier on the last episode. But I think you really... I don't think they should trade that pick. They've been unbelievably active so far, so I don't think they should trade that pick. I think they should hold that one there. They've got some pieces in place from what they've already traded. I know they got Luke Ridnour this morning for Matt Barnes, trading away that contract. I thought Matt Barnes would have been a good fit. Luke Ridnour is an old, washed-up point guard. He's no good, so he won't make sense here. They got Kemba Walker anyways. Don't really need Luke Ridnour. So, you know, I think they should keep that pick. Now, of course, the biggest storyline trade is DeMarcus Cousins. He is on the board, and there apparently, last night, were talks, according to Chris Broussard, of mutually starting to agree on a deal with the Lakers to trade him. Now, there were rumors earlier that Kings ownership had said they were not going to trade DeMarcus Cousins, despite the fact that head coach George Karl wanted to trade him. I do think Cousins is a good player. He would be a great fit, of course, out in L.A. if they could trade him out there. But again, DeMarcus Cousins, I do like DeMarcus Cousins. Good player, but there is an ego problem with DeMarcus Cousins. He doesn't really like to listen to leadership. I think that's why George Karl wants to get him out of there. But George Karl has been known to chase off players before. He chased off guys like Melo. And even guys like Ty Lawson and players like that didn't really favor him that much. Which is why it doesn't make sense why they would try to get Ty Lawson back there to play with Karl in Sacramento. But I think Cousins, ultimately, I don't think he's going to be traded. I think they'll end up keeping him. But if they do trade him, it could be interesting to see what they do. The number 2 pick, no doubt, would be in play if they're trading for him, because there's no need for L.A. to keep that pick if they trade for DeMarcus Cousins. That's the one that I think would sell them on that one. Someone had rumored that Kobe could be involved. There's no way that's going to happen. No one would take on that contract anyways, and they would never trade Kobe Bryant. So, you know, there could be some interesting things going on with that. That's the one to keep an eye on, DeMarcus Cousins. Don't be shocked if someone comes out of left field to try to get into the DeMarcus Cousins trade talks. So always keep an eye on that one. And, of course, there'll be plenty of other ones. Not a whole lot of other NBA rumor trades going out there. It's just the Kings one that's really big. But you never really know, especially on NBA draft night, who's going to end up being jumped up there and traded. Of course, we'll see some of these lower guys probably traded for draft picks. We'll see some trading in the draft picks. But the one, I mean, of course, the most active draft pick people are talking about are the Knicks at 4. Possibly trading down if D'Angelo Russell or, of course, one of the top 2 projected players in the draft aren't there. So, you know, there's going to be some trades tonight. Got to keep an eye on those. And then, of course, a lot. Yesterday, there were, I think, 4 or 5 significant players opting out of their contracts. Kevin Love, of course, which we believed that would happen. J.R. Smith opted out of his contract yesterday. Monte Ellis didn't opt out. He chose not to opt into the player options, so he's going to be a free agent as well. And there were a couple of others of significance. Of course, Al Jefferson's not going to... he said that he is opted out of his contract, expecting to get a bigger one. Charlotte should probably go after that. LeBron James will opt out of his contract, most likely, to try to get more money. He'll take another one-year contract. He'll take another contract with an option to opt in, opt out of it again next summer, and then pick up the huge amount that he's going to get when the salary cap is expanded in the NBA. You know, but there's a couple other guys still that we are waiting to see if they will opt out. And this free agent market is starting to look pretty good. We got guys like Aldridge and Gasol, who we knew were going to be on there. Now Monte Ellis is coming into the mix. Kevin Love is in the mix still. I mean, teams can't give up on him. I know the Lakers probably are going to go after him. Same thing with the Cavaliers, of course, pursuing him. The Celtics were rumored to pursue him, but after that debacle with Kelly Olynyk, maybe a little hard to try to sign him there. I mean, I'm pretty sure he doesn't want to play with the dude that ripped his arm out of his socket. According to him, I don't think he did it on purpose, but that's what Kevin Love was saying at the end of the year. So, there's a lot of potential this NBA offseason. The draft, of course, tonight, and then just about a week from now, July 1st, is when free agency starts. So it's going to happen just like that. Free agency in the NBA is a complete mess in the NBA. It's a scramble to try to get everyone as soon as possible. There are guys that will hold off a little bit, but in the NBA, it's pretty much you sign within the first couple of days if you're a big star, and the scraps are left over to try to sign after that. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this NBA draft special. Tune in tonight on ESPN, 7 o'clock for the NBA draft, and we thank you very much, and I hope you join us next week as we start to go into college football more. I'm going to try to start previewing college football down the line. And of course, I'll definitely talk about some of the NBA stuff that's going on because we'll be in the free agency around that time next week. I'll definitely recap the draft for you guys. So thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy. And remember, always you subscribe to the channel. You can always subscribe to the channel and follow me on Twitter at FutureTarHeel, and follow me on Instagram at Anthony_Pagnotta 96.